Welcome back to another episode of ChamberTalk, a podcast brought to you by Aberdeen and Grampian Chamber of Commerce. Joining me today, leadership coach, psychologist, and the author of not one, not two, but 3 Amazon bestseller books, Anurag Rai. Anurag, thanks for joining me. Let's talk about one of the books to start. I think it was maybe your first book, The Power Within. It's to do with meditation. I think you call it an unconventional form of meditation. How vital is that in order to try and be successful in life, finding that power within?
Yes. So, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. And to answer your question, so meditation, I think it's often misunderstood. And that's why I call it an unconventional way. Because whenever we talk about meditation, we think about the monk's way to meditate.
Yeah.
So we think that we are going to have a mat, we sit down on it, and we ask the brain to shut down, stop thinking, and it will listen to us. Unfortunately, that's not the case, because it works for the monks because they live in mountains. They don't have deadlines to meet. They don't have kids running around them. So we need a different approach to meditation. And that's something that I talk about in the book. I share 21 different ways because everybody is different. And the whole goal, so this is another misconception about meditation. People think that meditation is about, so the practice of meditation is about getting good at meditation. It's not. Just like you don't go to gym to get good at gym, you go to gym to become healthier.
Fitter,
Yeah. Same way, meditation, you do meditation, even though when you think that you're not good at it, it's still helping you to slow down and get that, get better control on your mind, because that's essentially what you're doing. You observing, you're practicing to be an observer of your thinking rather than being your thoughts. Because when we become the thoughts, we become our emotions, it gets harder to manage them. And the reason why it's important for everyone, I think, especially people who think that they don't have time for meditation, is even more important for them to meditate.
That kind of was my next question, because I don't think you can argue really with the science or logic or the benefits of meditation. That they're clear to say they can be vast and wide ranging. But what would you say to somebody who simply says, well, I don't have time to meditate?
Yeah. So first of all, it's not a lot of time that you need. You only need 5 to 10 minutes every day. And that, if you did it for, I say the maybe try doing it for 21 days before you start seeing some benefits of it.
So what would you say those benefits are of meditation?
Yeah, so the benefits would be, the most important benefit is you get better control on your emotions, on your thoughts, and you cannot make better decisions. You cannot be a better person for your family, for your kids. You cannot be a better employee or a leader if your neurochemistry is hijacked. And that's what meditation essentially does. It helps you to see yourself as separate from your thoughts. It helps you to slow down so that you can think clearly, make better decisions.
And I know you meditate, I think it was 20 minutes a day or so.
Yes.
You meditate for. When did you first start, and why did you first start doing that? Did you feel that maybe things were out of control and you had to bring them back in control?
Yes. So there was a time in my life when I was going through a very tough period. Basically, I came to UK, built everything. I came to UK with £100, built everything. Came here with an ambition to open a restaurant business, which I did. Spent 6 years working in different places, saving the money, gaining the experience, built the restaurant. It was successful. But then a series of events happened within a week, which were all unexpected and none of it
out of your control.
None of it directly my fault. But I lost everything. And at that point, it's the meditation that helped me a lot. And I would add up to one of the earlier questions that you asked, when people say that they don't have time to meditate. So there's a quote from Gandhi, and he says that today I'm going to be extra busy, so I'm going to meditate for 2 hours instead of 1. So that's what meditation does. It's about sharpening your saw. So when you are thinking clearly, again, we talk about burnout, right? So people don't get tired because they're working too much. They get tired because they're thinking too much. So at that time, obviously, I was thinking too much. And that's when I started practicing meditation. And whenever I try anything new, I like to give it some time, which I'm thankful that I did. And it has had a profound impact. If there was one thing that I said would have had the biggest impact, one practice that I did, that would be meditation.
Well, and I guess it all kind of ties in with personal development, which I think is probably a good subject to talk about. I know, doing a bit of research, you certainly feel like most people live their whole lives without knowing that they're true or their full potential. So what would you say to me or to any of our listeners to help them in that sense, to help them realise their full potential, that they can actually go far in this world if they put their mind to it?
Yes. So world records are broken every year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. None of us get to realize our full potential. And just starting with that curiosity, that to find out, okay, what am I capable of? Because limit is nothing. Yeah, limit is nothing. And that's true for each one of us. I think the reason why sometimes people limit themselves is because they start looking at the information as their definition. Okay. So everything that has happened in the past. So how good we are at something is a reflection of our practice and not our self-worth. Mm-hmm. Our worth is limitless because the possibilities are limitless. So anybody who's looking to find out what their true potential is, the first step would be to believe.
Yeah.
The belief is important because I think one of my favorite quotes is from Henry Ford, which is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. And your philosophy, which I really like actually, is to do with life being a game and how we can't control the game, but we can become better players. And I think that's true in a lot of sense. And I think certainly post-pandemic, a number of people have perhaps found themselves and their lives at a bit of a crossroads. They've perhaps lost work or seen changes in work. They've seen changes in, their financial situation, for example, and it can make everything feel a little bit disorderly. And that's continued to where we are 2024 just now. So in that kind of face of adversity that's out with our control, how can we become better players at the game to gain back that control?
Yes. So the first thing is to accept and realize that we don't have control, and it's okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Stephen Covey talks about this in his book about 3 circles: circle of control, circle of influence, and circle of concern. When we're too busy trying to control things that we don't have control on, what happens is we miss the opportunity to control the very thing we can control. Mm-hmm. So if I ask you, what's the one thing that you can control? It's only one thing, and that is your thoughts and your actions in this moment. Yeah. Not outside this moment. You cannot control what you did 2 minutes ago. No. You cannot control what you will do 2 minutes later, mm-hmm. until that later becomes now. Yeah. So that's the only thing we can control. And once we realize that, the whole thing becomes about becoming a better player. Because in any game, there's 2 sides, right? So let's say football, for example. The 2 sides, the players who are playing on the field and the spectators who are watching the game. What do the spectators do? They should have done that. They should have done that. Yeah. They should have been standing there and all that, right? So that's what spectators do. Yeah. What do players do? Information, information, information. What's my next move? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So everything is an information. I cannot control anything. I can only control my next move. Yeah. My thoughts, my actions in this moment.
Do you think people often get too caught up in the past? They're out with your control, but often it's lasting and people struggle to move on in that sense.
Yes, and that's something where meditation can benefit as well. So life is only happening now. Anything outside now is either a memory or an imagination. Mm-hmm. And basically, when people get caught up in the past, what they are getting caught up with is their memory. It's just a memory, which is recycled again and again. And basically, I can do an experiment, which I like to do in my workshops, which basically proves how our brain does not understand the difference between thinking and reality. Mm-hmm. So if we are caught up in past, what we are doing is we are reliving that past. For our brain, it's real when we are thinking about it, mm-hmm. Which is obviously it's like, if it's a bad thing, it's like you're being chased by a tiger every day. That's the stress response you get. Yeah.
Is that a difficult thing to teach to people? Was it difficult for you to learn yourself, I guess, that you can't control the past? Because it is challenging to move on from that.
Yes. So there's 2 things there. One is, when are you more likely to jump a rope this high? When you think it's hard or when you think it's easy?
Well, yeah.
When you think it's easy. Yeah. So we start by the mindset that, doesn't matter whether it's hard or easy. I'm going to think that it's easy because that makes it easier. Yeah. And the second thing is about practice. So we have been practicing for 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years, something, which is distraction.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to change that, we got to allow it some time and start a new practice. The more we practice, the better we get at it.
Mm-hmm.
So the practice of being present, and meditation is one such thing, which is creating a daily ritual of practicing being present.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. You talked about self-belief there. How vital do you think that is, to tie it back to a previous question, to people reaching their full potential, believing in themselves?
Absolutely one of the most important things. Our brain will always prove our self-image right. And there's psychological principles behind that support that fact, which we call cognitive dissonance or Pygmalion effect, for example. So, and this is the reason why most people struggle for changing their behavior, because they want to go from their current behavior to their desired behavior, but their identity is still stuck to their current behavior. So it keeps pulling them back to their current behavior. So if I think I'm bad at procrastination, basically that's what I'm reaffirming in my head. That's who I am. And our brain will always choose familiar pain over unfamiliar possibility.
Yeah.
So the more we have this belief, the more familiar that identity is, and we'll keep choosing that again and again.
It's interesting. We could talk about this for ages. I'm sure it's very interesting. But let's move on to talk about leadership, because I know you coach leadership quite often. The phrase I often hear to do with leaders is so-and-so, Anurag Rai is a born leader, etc. Is that the case, or can you teach leadership? Or is it just something you're born with? Because it's such a cliche that people use all the time.
Yes. So I don't think you're born as a leader. Leadership is definitely a trainable skill. Mm-hmm. The reason why sometimes we think that somebody is a born leader is because as soon as we are born, or even sometimes before we are born, the programming starts, right? So our brain, especially when we are very young, it soaks up information from everywhere. So maybe we are in that kind of circumstances or situations where we develop those skills very early on, and people think they are born leaders. Mm-hmm. But it's not. It's just the situation, circumstances, because of which they have programmed their brain to create certain behaviors which are conducive to good leadership. Mm-hmm. So in order to train somebody to be a leader, we just have to identify, okay, what are some of the gaps in the skill set? But also, one of the most important things is understanding how human behavior, because that's what leadership is. 100% of our employees are people, 100% of our customers are people. Yeah. And in order to be a better leader, we got to understand people.
Is that do you think the main quality a leader should have, that ability to understand people and perhaps feel sympathy and empathy towards their customers or employees?
Yeah. So the main criteria for obviously it's a very vast topic. Yeah. But if I had to sum it up, the main criteria for being a good leader is having a clear vision and then enrolling people into that vision. Once you enroll your people into your vision now becomes their vision. And they do not need motivated or inspired, because they're just working towards their own vision. And to do that, you got to understand what drives and limits them.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about you briefly now. You talk about reaching full potential and realizing your full potential. Did you, let's say, when you opened your restaurant here all those years ago, did you ever foresee yourself doing what you're doing now?
No, not. I did not even knew about this profession. Yeah. I did not know what coaching is. So yeah, no, not at all. I came here at a very young age with £100, as I said, to open my restaurant business, and that's what the dream was, to open my restaurant business, which I did. But then through different things. So I'll quickly, in a short, I'll explain what happened. So after that incident, I lost everything. And that's where the foundation, which we touched on, foundation or the philosophy of what I do just now was established, because I spent 4 nights thinking to myself, why did this happen to me? Mm-hmm. Why me? Why me? Why me?
I think you spent some time in your storeroom, didn't you, at the restaurant? You had to sleep there.
Yes. It's a dark storeroom because the light and heating was cut off. And I kept asking that questions, why me? And obviously it took me to a very bad place. Until on the 5th night, a new thought came in my head, and this time, why not me? Yeah. When bad things can happen to small kids in war zone countries, surely bad things can happen to me. It's not about what happens to me, but what I do about it. And that's when I created that philosophy, is life is like a game, a game that we cannot control. Sooner we accept it, better we play. And while we cannot control the game, we can all become a better player. So I got some courage, asked for help, got the restaurant back up and running. 2014, when my son was born, decided to change career, became an accountant, again, totally different to coaching. Started working for a Big Four accounting firm. And it was during lockdown, because throughout this thing, I learned a lot, which helped me to change career as well as to come out from that difficult phase. So I knew I had to share something. And that's when I wrote the first book, The Power Within. On the back of that book, more people started approaching me for advice. And that's when I realized, okay, well, this is something that I can do, I can share. And that's when I got into coaching.
And just briefly talk to us about your other two books, because 3 Amazon bestsellers, The Power Within was your first, we've mentioned that, but you've written 2 other ones as well.
Yes. So mine 2 points. So The Power Within is totally on meditation. It's a 21-day meditation challenge. You read a chapter and you do a meditation for that day. At the end of 21 days, basically, you get an idea of what meditation you enjoy, and you can stick with it. Mine 2.0 is all about psychology and understanding human mind, how it works, and also how can we achieve what we were talking about, our full potential. Really good feedback for that book, and I've got some public speaking opportunities at the back of the book. The third one is Leading with Human Quotient, and this is what I do. I identify a gap in where maybe people are not having the right conversations, and I put something across. So human quotient is, there's a lot of talk about emotional quotient, then people talk about adversity quotient, cultural quotient, motivational intelligence, and I thought we needed something that brings everything together, especially today when things are progressing very rapidly in technological world, artificial intelligence. Information will become less and less relevant. It's how we deal with humans. That's what leadership is all about, and that's what the third book is about. And
just finally, just to wrap up the podcast, do you think you've realized, or do you think you realize your full potential?
No, because the day I think that I have realized my full potential is the day I've missed the point. As I said, the potential is limitless. So it's the pursuit, it's the journey, which keeps us going, and that's the goal.
Anurag, thanks for joining me. Really interesting conversation there. And that's all for this week's episode of Chamber Talk. Please do like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.